The LEE versus the Hornady progressive press flagships. Okay, so here I have two progressive presses. Both of these are the flagships of either brand. On here I have LEE, which is kind of known as like the more budget kind of reloading equipment. Everything I've used of theirs has functioned flawlessly, including this progressive press. I've reloaded literally like probably 100, 150 rounds on this. So that's it. Whereas this guy, I have over 25,000 rounds loaded on this. So they're both great presses. They both get the job done. But today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of each. Okay, so the very first thing you need to know about is the price point of both of these. So this out the door, I paid $373.70 with taxes, shipping, everything. That was shipped to my house, and it is a progressive press and functions great. This one, it out the door for everything is here was $1,023.79. So this is about a third of the price of everything you see here on the Hornady. However, you don't have to get this case feeder attachment at the beginning. In fact, I recommend you don't, because it'll save you almost half the price just in this case feeder to go with here. Also, this one came with the shell plate you need to get started for the specific caliber. The Hornady one does not. All shell plates are sold separately. This one came with the first set of dies that you need to get started. The Hornady does not. All dies are sold separately. It did come with enough of these breech lock or whatever, quick exchange die bushing or whatever. It did come with those, so at least you don't have to buy a set of those to begin with. So did the LEE, so there's that. But there is a lot more to buy than just the press, because for the press alone, $489. Granted, that was a few years ago. They're probably a little bit more. I did wait till what was on sale as well. I am partial to my Hornady press, so it may seem like I'm beating up on this LEE press just a little bit. I'm also going to do the cons of this press before I do its pros, because it does have some pros. Okay, so the very first con is this LEE press has a lot more plastics on it. So this guy's plastic here, that's plastic. This smaller retention thing's plastic. These are plastic. This powder dropper thing is plastic. This is plastic. This bracket here is plastic. The main drive with all the torque, that is not plastic. This primer feeder stuff is all plastic. So there are even a lot of the clutch drive system underneath, like the housing of all that is plastic. So there are a lot more plastics going on to it. This primer feeder is plastic. So you kind of get my point. Where we come over here to the Hornady, and there is honestly not much plastic on it. So other than the case bins, which are both plastic, there's a plastic thing here. I had this press apart. I brought it here. So this part's plastic here. This feeding system is plastic, so there's that. This is plastic. You got a little plastic piece right there. Oh, and then this plastic piece here. And other than that, that's it. Everything else on here is metal. So if you took both these presses, you chuck this one in a fire, chuck that one in a fire. This one, other than the handful of pieces you're gonna have to replace and then re-greasing everything and praying that no tolerances and metal got warped, you'd be good to go. This one, throw it away and buy a new one. But again, this one's a third the price, so you could just buy 3 of these for the price of 1 of these. So take your pick. Okay, so that's the biggest con. The next con I want to talk about is these mounting holes here are a little bit more obscured, especially kind of this one over here. So when you're mounting it, you have to either get a swivel joint. If you put it up, it's really not too bad, but you still probably want a like a swivel joint. Whereas like on the Hornady, until you put the case feeder part on, they're both wide open. Although once you put this case feeder on, it's kind of obscured as well, so maybe that's kind of a draw between the two. Okay, another con of the LEE is that this driver clutch system down here on the bottom, it's kind of obscured and plastic, and I honestly have no clue what magic voodoo is happening in there, and adjusting it is a little bit trickier than here on the Hornady. The driver clutch system is all down here at the bottom. You got these 2 little pawls here and this guy here, and to adjust it, you just literally loosen or tighten these to adjust whether it's progressing more or less. Okay, the next thing is actually the manual, and you can honestly don't really worry about this, but the LEE manual, all the pictures are black and white. They couldn't invest in color, and they're a lot smaller. I don't have the Hornady manual here with me, but the Hornady manual for instructions for putting it together, at least for the case feeder, it's been a long time since I did the press, were all in color and a little bit bigger, so they're a little bit easier to read. Again, that's the manual, so it's not that big a deal. Okay, as far as maintainability, on the Hornady, there's grease zerks all over this thing. So you got those two right there, and you got the main one right there. I actually think that's mostly it. But for the main moving parts, everything can be greased really easy. Whereas on the LEE, you can still like grease it manually, but you have to just put it on the points and oil some of these other spots that would be difficult to get grease into. So maintainability of the LEE is going to be a touch harder to maintain over the long haul, although it can still be done. Okay, changing shell plates on the Hornady is a piece of cake. You just undo this one bolt, pull it off, slap the other one on, reset your retaining spring, and you're off for the races. On the LEE, it's really kind of a pain. You have to like undo this guy up here, you have to remove this plastic piece, and then you got to pull it off, and like has to be part way up. It's really kind of a pain. It can be done. It really isn't horrible, but it's kind of a little bit of a pain. So shell plates adjustment are a little bit easier. Another thing that is a wash between the two is the dies, the quick change die system. LEE uses these threads, but honestly, it's just like a sixth of a turn, you're in. Hornady doesn't use those threads. They'd use like these guys, but it's a sixth of a turn. It's just, you put that in, sixth of a turn, and you're in. Honestly, I kind of like the Hornady ones a little bit better because the threads you can't over undo it, you know, and get it kind of jammed up. But other than that, it's honestly about the same thing. Okay, there's a couple things that are a little bit trickier on the LEE than on the Hornady, that where if things go south, that it's a little bit easier to fix. So first off is if you have an extra primer that you dripped, stopped, or fell on the Hornady, you can just pop it in here on the top, you're good to go. Whereas on the LEE, there's not a good way to open this thing. You have to lock it, pull it out, pop it open, put it back in. It's kind of a pain. So it's a little bit harder to do that. Although I don't find myself having to feed primers in one at a time very often, so it's really not that big a deal. Same thing goes for here. It's easier to access the one on the Hornady press. The Hornady press, you can even manually put a primer in there if you're just doing one, whereas this guy, you have to pull it out and stick it in there and then go. Is it a big deal? No, but just little nitpicky things. The other thing that's harder on the LEE is when you're first working up the primer and the powder charge. I honestly usually like to stick my measuring, I like to stick it underneath and then manually charge it, and it's really kind of hard here on the LEE to manually charge a case. It's all plastic fill, you don't want to break anything, the spring is fighting you, so you don't want to do that. Whereas on the Hornady, it's a piece of cake. You just grab this, lift it up, and you're done. Now I don't have any powder in there, so it's not a big deal. Okay, another downside is the case feeder on here, which is included, which is a huge pro. We'll talk about that later. It's a little bit smaller. The Hornady one holds a butt ton of cases, although I don't have very many in there right now. Also, the LEE powder holder is a little bit smaller. For pistol, honestly, that's not going to be a big deal. For when you're doing a butt ton of 223, you'll fly through this pretty quick. Whereas on the Hornady, it is much bigger. I like the cap of the Hornady better. It goes on. Whereas this guy, I mean, you can just like flip the thing off. And it comes right off. Okay, but honestly, all those can really be lived with. None of them are real deal breakers for this guy. It does work just fine. I've reloaded plenty of cases on it just fine. Okay, so the first pro of this guy, and I discussed at the very beginning, is the cost. It's a third of the price of all this. However, you don't have to get the case feeder, and then you can just get this stuff, and you're probably like more like $600 versus $370. But if you want the case feeder, you're going to be over $1,000, whereas this you're $370 for case feeder and all. The next pro is that this priming system is actually pretty sweet because the whole thing just opens up, dump your primers in, shake it till they're all facing the right direction, and snap it in, and you're good to go. Okay, and so for the Hornady, you have to put your primers in this tray, and then you shake it, put this over, flip them over, and then you pick them up all one at a time with this guy. It takes you forever, and then you dump them in here. Once it's in there, it works great, but it does take a little bit longer because you're picking up every single primer at once, whereas here you handle all 100 at once, which is honestly kind of nice. The other pro is that this thing, it comes with so much extra stuff. It comes with your case feeder, it comes with your dies, it comes with your shell plate. The biggest thing is it comes with the case feeder. This one it's an extra $400 for this, and then for each of these case feeder plates, which in my price of $1,023 or something, I only counted one of those plates. You got to get 4 of those plates for small pistol, large pistol, small rifle, and large rifle. So you're in it quite a bit more. Another small thing, which I have never had an issue on the Hornady, but it is kind of nice on this one, is this lever is more adjustable. So you can adjust it down here. You can undo this guy and you can adjust the angle that you'd like, and then you can also adjust the length. So if you're doing like pistol casings or something that doesn't need as much a torque, you can shorten this so your overall travel is less, which is going to help you go a little bit faster. Whereas the Hornady, for the most part, is fixed. I suppose you could adjust these threads by, like, I don't know, a centimeter or so, tops, half an inch. Sorry guys, I changed from metric to freedom units back and forth. But there's really not a whole lot adjustable with that handle. Now, have I ever wanted to adjust that handle? Absolutely not. But just so you know, it's not very adjustable. Okay, and another pro about this is not only is the press cheaper, but all of its accessories and everything that you will need to purchase in the future are also cheaper. So the shell plates for this guy are like 35 bucks, where the shell plates for this guy are like 45 bucks. Now, another thing that I did forget to mention as a con on one of this is the casings. You can undo them at every single stage. Let me find one. So here's like a 9mm. I can put it in here, but it's kind of a little bit tricky. You got to like manually fold this guy out, and then you can just slip it in there, and then you're good to go. And then to get it out, kind of the same thing. You can manually pull that guy out, slip it out, and you're good to go. Whereas over here on the Hornady, you just bloop in, and it's just this metal spring, and bloop out. So getting your cases in and out halfway through, reloading if something goes crazy, it's much easier on the Hornady. Okay, another very small nitpicky pro, but this bin is bigger, and it comes with a full size edge over here. This Hornady one, it doesn't come with an edge, so you get it partway full and your freaking casings start falling out. So I actually sell these if you want to go head over to eBay and grab those, or you just print one or whatever if you're into 3D printing, and you throw it on here at the edge. Okay guys, so that's really it between the pros and cons of both. They honestly both work absolutely great. I have no complaints with them. Okay, another con of the LEE press is that if you're done reloading random components and you need to swap your primer type or something, getting the remaining primers out of this little black thing is kind of a pain. And pulling this up, you got to make sure they don't fall out. Whereas on the Hornady, it's much easier. Just undo this guy, turn the thing, they all dump out in your hand. So that's pretty nice. Also, the Hornady will feed all the way till empty, whereas this one, sometimes it leaves just a couple of primers in this last little curve down there on the bottom. One pro that I also forgot to mention is the LEE 6-pack Pro has 6 positions, whereas the Hornady AP lock load only has 5. Have I ever needed more than 5? No, but hey, there are some accessories like a powder cop or something that you could throw in the LEE, whereas I don't got space for that on the Hornady, without buying some more things, which allows my powder thing to flare out the case rather than needing a separate die for that. If I were looking to get a progressive press right now, what my recommendation would be is if it's your first press and you just want to get a progressive and you're really tight on a budget, I'd go ahead and get the LEE. It's great. The value for your money is there. The bang for your buck is there. It works great. It's made in America. There's not too much left to be desired on it. And it works. You'll be able to reload tens of thousands of casing on this. Now, if you do have a little bit more money, I would go ahead and get the Hornady because it does. It's just a little bit nicer. There's a little bit more slick features. It's made of a little bit stronger materials. Both of these are made in America, so that's kind of a pro for both. But at the end of the day, the decision is yours, and there are other brands of progressive presses out there as well. I can do videos on those eventually later when I have money to buy them, or if I meet somebody who owns one. Anyway, guys, if you have either of these presses and you want to put your comments in, your 2 cents in, please put in the comment section below. I still read every single comment. And always, guys, thanks for watching.